I despise Mitch McConnell. I have a great deal of contempt for all politicians. That's just good practice. But I have a unique, spiteful little place in my heart for Mitch McConnell. And if there's any justice in the world, there's a special little place for Mitch McConnell in hell. Mitch McConnell is such an absurd caricature of a shitty politician that he convinced me to stop being a Republican. Yeah, your main man, Ron the Anarchist, used to be a registered Republican between 2007 and 2013. That's right, I voted for John McCain in 2008, and I deeply regret it and apologize for any harm I might have contributed to. But I decided that there was no good left in the party back in 2013, the first time Mitch McConnell decided to throw a hissy fit about the budget. Republicans whining about the budget isn't anything new. They've been bellyaching and bloviating about the budget since, I don't know, the 70s. Ronald Reagan gave a 20-minute long, nationally televised speech in 1981 where he, amongst other things, bloviated about the budget, about the debt ceiling, and about the national debt. Most of that entire speech is actually hilarious in hindsight. I would advise anyone to go back and watch it or read a transcript. Both of those things will be linked in the underbar for anyone who wants to go look at it. Newt Gingrich and the Republicans in Congress very famously called for and got 2 government shutdowns in 1995. The Republicans wanted to kill more poor people by denying them health care, and Bill Clinton was like, nah, I want to keep the number of dead people due to not providing health care roughly the same as it is. What I am attempting to clarify by going through all that is to say that nothing that Mitch McConnell has done is new or unique. Not exactly. What is new and unique, what Mitch McConnell is doing that is, at least ostensibly difficult to combat, is that he is doing these things regularly. He is doing them as a matter of course. Mitch McConnell has weaponized rules and bylaws to keep the Senate from doing anything he does not explicitly want them to do. And because he's in a position of leadership, he can effectively do that by himself. So, contrary to what a lot of people are screeching about, the budget isn't actually that important. Well, the budget is, but, having a budget isn't so much. I used to think it was important back when I was a Republican, and I understand if you think it is, but, half of what Congress does in any given year, in any given functional year, is change what's in the budget. And that's fine. I'm not complaining, I'm just stating facts. And when you understand that, you understand that Mitch McConnell throwing a fit about the budget every single year that he's been in power has nothing to do with the budget. It has to do with control and who has control. And Mitch McConnell, well, the Republican Party generally, but especially Mitch McConnell, want to take control of the economy and essential functions of government away from the government and give them to private corporations. And I'll say that again for the people in the back. Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans are working to break apart the federal government and sell it off to rich perverts. And the primary way they've been doing this, the primary way that Mitch McConnell has been doing this, is by slowing the functions of the federal government to a crawl. If the government cannot be relied upon to perform essential functions of government, then private corporations will just swoop in and take care of it themselves. Because people will take any shelter in a storm. And something that's left out of the conversation far too much for my liking is the why. Why McConnell is doing what he's doing, and the material effect that it is having on us. Mitch McConnell is murdering American democracy. I feel like people have all but forgotten about the Tea Party, and the effect that that ideology had on the federal government. When Mitch McConnell first came into power in 2013, it was on the back of the Tea Party platform, and him stalling the federal government, stopping the budget from passing, was understood at the time to be enacting the will of the Tea Party. And here's the thing about the Tea Party. They were very quickly, almost immediately, co-opted by financial interests and used as a blunt instrument to break apart as much of the federal government as possible, with the end goal of privatizing as much of the federal government as possible. I just said that. Keep up. And activists have known for a long time that financial interests have been intending to break apart the federal government in exactly the ways that Mitch McConnell is doing just that. I have I have in my bookcase a folder full of notes from a workshop that I went to about how the American Legislative Exchange Council is out to destroy democracy. I think I went to that workshop in 2015. Better example. John Oliver did a segment about ALEC and how shitty they are before Trump was elected. And when I say before Trump was elected, I mean 7 fucking years ago, in 2014. And for some people, 2014 might not seem like that long ago, but 2014 was the 4th season of Game of Thrones. That's when Tywin and Joffrey got murked. 2014 was the last year that the Colbert Report aired on television. 2014 was the year the first season of Mike Tyson Mysteries aired. 2014 was the year that Bruce Lesnar broke the streak. I have no idea what that means, but it's important enough to be on the Wikipedia page. Better example. I went back and re-watched the Last Week Tonight segment on ALEC as part of writing this script, and John Oliver offhandedly mentions that some states have legalized gay marriage. So I went and looked it up, and yeah, 2014 is before gay marriage was legalized. 2014 is also the year that Michael Brown was murdered by a piece of shit cop named Darren Wilson. Which I only bring up to remind you that Darren Wilson was never charged with a crime for that. So the understanding that business interests intended to fracture the federal government, and how they intended to do that, had been in the public consciousness since the time of the massive protests at and around Ferguson, Missouri, and activists have known about it for even longer. And yet, Mitch McConnell and the Republicans just did it anyway. No one stopped them. And I say that because I think that that's a point that really needs to be driven home. The other branches of government, the judiciary and the executive branch, haven't stopped Mitch McConnell. The Democrats? Not only have they not stopped Mitch McConnell, one can make a very strong argument that the Democratic National Committee deliberately sabotaged a popular Democratic candidate in order to keep Mitch McConnell in power. And because no one has stopped Mitch McConnell, he's just going to keep on murdering American democracy. Because here's the thing that a lot of people don't grasp. The government doing things that people want them to do. That's democracy. And what Mitch McConnell is doing, and what the corporations are paying him to do, is keep democracy from happening. Mitch McConnell was put in power, and has stayed in power, so that he can stop the people of this country from having any say in anything in the government. So he can stop the government from doing anything. And no one in a position of power cares enough to stop him. And what is there to say other than that? Regular links are in the... The crap?
You can't end the goddamn video like that. That's way too depressing. What the hell are you thinking?
Did you just throw this at me?
Do you know what people say about your videos? Oh, this sure is informative, but now I want to fucking kill myself. Can you maybe make these less terrifying and depressing? Or send me some Xanax and weed? And I'm all out of Xanax and weed, okay?
Is this your way of telling me that you're transporting illicit substances across state lines? Again?
You made an entire fucking video about how to fuck with Mitch McConnell last year. Just say all that again.
Yeah. Last year. Quick refresher for people who don't remember. Last fucking year, Mitch McConnell was threatening to not even hold a vote on raising the debt ceiling for some absurd fucking reason. It's always an absurd fucking reason, because the point isn't the thing that's happening, it's about keeping control. I just mentioned that a couple minutes ago. Keep up. Anyway, whatever absurd fucking thing that Mitch McConnell was making the Senate shit themselves over incensed me so much that I made an entire video on this phone detailing how to harass the Kentucky Republican Party until they made Mitch McConnell leave the GOP. I stand by everything I said in that video. Go watch it again. Maybe do some of the things. it might do some good. But more than that, there needs to be a radical overhaul around how we talk about Mitch the murderer. We need to, in no uncertain terms, be 200% up to here fucking done with Mitch the murderer and his deadly shenanigans. You may have noticed the incendiary title of this video, and it is incendiary, and that's the point. Part of being absolutely, totally fucking done with something, part of changing the tone around something, is creating an environment that is entirely and holistically hostile to that thing. Hashtag Mitch the murderer. Hashtag kick killer Mitch. Hashtag impeach Mitch the murderer. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Just creating an environment that is holistically and entirely hostile to Mitch the murderer isn't going to be enough. We need to create an environment that is hostile to him in the place that he works. That is, the Senate. And that means we need to start making a coordinated effort to get Mitch McConnell impeached from the Senate. Not to let him resign, but to get him impeached so that he can no longer hold office. I am not joking. Stop laughing at me. Listen. If we put enough pressure on other senators to even bring up the topic of impeaching Mitch McConnell, then we can get it done. And I know that there are some people who will tell you that, you should be nice to senators when you call them. They're working so hard and they have such difficult jobs and blah, 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 blah. Fuck that shit! You scream at them! You get on your phones and you scream at them! Mitch McConnell has been murdering American democracy for 10 fucking years! Why is he still in office? Why hasn't he been impeached? If you see your senator in person, get up in their faces and scream at them. And if you can't do that, pick up a piece of junk and throw it at them. Senators, and rich perverts in general, want you to be nice to them because it tells them that you know your place, and you can be safely ignored. And senators, and I can't stress this enough, rich perverts in general don't understand that things are serious until they start getting pelted with junk. And that's not even all you can do. In states where there are sunshine laws, you can look up who's donating to your local senators, call those people, and tell those donors to demand that Mitch the murderer be impeached. Senators can and will ignore regular people for as long as they possibly can, but they can't ignore their donors. And they can't ignore their staffers either, which is why even if you don't talk to a senator directly, you call them and you pester their staff. So, that's a bit much. Quick note, if the audio for this part sounds entirely different, it's because I'm using an entirely different mic. Does it sound better? Does it sound worse? I don't know. I can't tell the difference. Tell me in the comments. But I've gone over the video and I've edited most of it together, and I'm not completely lacking in self-awareness. I could tell immediately that this was a lot more venomous than I intended it to be, even considering the subject matter. So I felt that it was necessary to explain what it is that's at stake. So I said back in the beginning of the video that the budget doesn't matter, or at least having a full budget doesn't exactly matter, and I think I need to explain why that is. Money isn't real. It's a thing that we made up. But the image of money, the idea of money, is vital to how our society functions, because it has become our primary method of social interaction. Like, if you're gonna go out and buy some drinks with some friends, you're gonna need to have some money to buy drinks. Or if you're going to go up to the store and pick some stuff up, you need to have money to go out and pick up some stuff. Even when you are at work, at times you are not working, like when you're at lunch, you need to have gone and bought something in order for it to be socially acceptable for you to interact with your co-workers. And that's kind of fucked. I don't have the time to dwell on it right now. Let's save it for a different video. So the threat of collapsing the economy is not the threat of making everyone poor overnight. 3 people control half of the wealth in the country. Everyone is already fucking poor. The real threat of destroying the economy is collapsing the entire method of societal function. How will society function if everyone's money suddenly becomes useless? Who gets to decide who gets food and shelter and clothing when everyone's agreed standard for who gets those things becomes worth nothing? People could probably figure something out if they were given enough notice ahead of time, but that is explicitly not what we are talking about. We're talking about this happening like that. there would be chaos. There would be riots, there would be violence, there would be mass bloodshed all over the country in ways that we have not seen in a generation. And that is what McConnell, well, ultimately everyone in Congress, but especially McConnell, are threatening the people of this country with. Every time that someone throws a hissy fit over the budget or the budget ceiling, they are threatening widespread, earth-shaking violence against this country. And that's just the violence that he's threatening people with. As of the 8th of September 2021, there have been 710,000 people killed by COVID-19. Government malfeasance and widespread political inaction have led to the deaths of a number of people 5 times greater than the city of Springfield. From what I was reading, COVID has killed more people in the United States than the AIDS virus, and the AIDS virus had a 40-year head start. And that's just counting the people who were dead. How many people lost their jobs, or their homes, or their livelihoods? How many people have been infected and haven't regained full mobility or their full health? What about the people who lost loved ones from COVID? Do those people not count as having been injured? The spread of COVID could have been prevented, and can still be prevented, but Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party consider their obligations to their political donors more important than the well-being of the people that they govern. And that is what we know they have done. Mitch McConnell and the Republican Party almost collapsed society last year. And every time they throw a hissy fit about the budget or the debt ceiling, they are threatening to collapse it entirely. Mitch McConnell, Mitch the murderer, is not just a threat to the United States. Mitch McConnell is a threat to the entire world in a way only a cartoon supervillain could possibly be. And as long as Mitch the murderer stays in political power, he will continue to be a cartoon supervillain, because that's what his donors pay him to do. And I think most rational people would agree, that if you can stop a real-life cartoon supervillain just by being mean to 100 or so people, do it. Some ignorant people might huff and puff and bloviate about it, but those people don't seem to understand. We tried being nice. That didn't work. Now we need to get serious.
Hey there, kiddos. I'm Snuggles, the guy what edits Ron's videos. And now I have a real voice thanks to degenerate Western technology. Ron's busy at the moment working through the homemade Chipotle he had for lunch, so he's having me do the outro for you. Now that means I'm going to tell you to do all the YouTube stuff you already know how to do, but I'm going to tell you to do it anyway. Leave a like and a comment if you like the video and have something to add. Or leave a dislike and a comment if you think Mitch is the last bastion of true American freedom, or whatever you cooked up in your silly brain, and just tell the whole world you don't know shit about politics. Now, if you want to engage with Ron specifically and anonymously, he has a Curious Cat where you can send him anonymous harassment. That's mostly what it's used for. If you want the whole world to see how much of a fuck-up you are, you can find and engage Ron on Twitter, where he's talking about how a business owner in Springfield put out a hit on one of her employees and the kids. That's not funny, Ron. That's fucking grim. That's a real fucking story. Oh, Jesus, my fuck. If you thought this video was entertaining enough, or informative enough, or just cool enough that you wanted to pay Ron for it, well, first and foremost, there's no God merciful or powerful enough to cure you of whatever the hell your problem is. And second, Ron has a coffee account where you can send him money. Now, Ron wants me to tell you there's no need to send him money you don't have, and he's going to keep doing this as long as he's able to, regardless of whether he gets money or not. But I am going to tell you, we've kind of been having a hard time lately. Chipotle ain't cheap, but those burritos are like 12-ish bucks a piece. It's outrageous, but it's all he's eaten for 6 months. And I don't mean he keeps going to Chipotle and getting burritos. I mean, he got one one time 6 months ago, and it's rotted to mush on one end, and there's like green mold on it, and I keep telling him he needs to stop, and he says, well, I know you are, but what am I? And what sense does that even fucking make? But anyways, we could really use the cash if you have it to spare. Ron says his next video is going to be about how the only way to fix the Sangamon County Fair is to ignore all the vendors and pelt Nathan Smith with garbage until he decides to move to New Zealand. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I told him that, but he said he doesn't care because Smith had it coming. We could use as few witnesses as possible for that one, so maybe skip it. You know, go outside and do something important. Take care of yourself. Drink water. You know, whatever you got.